Good morning, everybody. It is Wednesday, the 18th of November, and it's so windy today here in the West. Yesterday was a bluebird day. Today is a day to stay inside and work, I think. Glad you're all here. Thanks for all your comments about the books. Oh, hold on. I'm having a little... that should fix it. Thanks for all your comments about the books. I'm glad that about my book. I'm glad you're starting finally to get them. Some of you have had it for a while, but Amazon got a little behind, I think. So thanks for all your fabulous words. It's really amazing to actually have people using the book and see how you all react to it. So that's really fun. Next, before I forget, I will be back next week on the 25th of November, which for those of you who aren't in the U.S. is the day before Thanksgiving. Our Thanksgiving in the United States is the last Thursday of November, so it's a big holiday here. But this will be the day before on Wednesday. And gosh, I am just happy to be here in my studio on a Wednesday in November. I am still working on this piece. I think next week I might try to show you something else, but sorry about that. This week I'm still working on the little Handbasket tapestry. Little, it's big for little. It's like 14 inches square. So welcome everybody from all over the world, the UK and Washington and Texas and Florida. And thank you, Laura. Laura works at a yarn shop or consult at a yarn shop. And she said that my book sold out in a couple hours. They had 3 copies. And I also am really thrilled, Laura, that you are... you've convinced the owner to carry some tapestry yarn. So that is really great. I think that most yarn shops are focused on knitters and maybe crocheters if you're a lucky crocheter. So to be able to have weaving stuff in a yarn shop is fabulous. So those of you who still have local yarn shops, see if you can convince them to carry some weaving yarn. Oh, Ginny, that's cool. Ginny says her guild watched my sand in the shoes video last night. So that's very cool. That's an autobiographical video that's available on Vimeo. It's a redo of a talk that I've given for a long time, and I redid it to make it current, and it's you can watch it on Vimeo. There's a link on my website somewhere under maybe the shop. Kathleen wants to know when registration for Design 2 will open up. That will be I think I'm going to open registration probably January 2nd, Kathleen. It will start January 11 is when the first course content will drop. So, but I'll open registration. I might change my mind on this, but it's moving into the new fiscal year thing to start it on January 1 instead of December. So that's my guess. But I don't have a final answer yet, and I will have that in my newsletter in the next couple of weeks for sure. Best guess, January 2nd, registration opens. Content starts for sure January 11. Betsy. That's funny. Betsy says she dreams she mischanged the shed and she woke up and it wasn't true. So, well, here's the thing, Betsy. I went hiking yesterday because I think you live in Colorado, but we had a bluebird day yesterday. It was beautiful. It was in the 60s, no wind. It was really gorgeous. So I went for a long hike, and that is a great thing to do when the weather is good. Also, nobody's out there right on a Tuesday. So, today the weather is kind of crappy, so that story probably is irrelevant to most of you, but hello Eva from Spain, and Yeah. Yeah, Barb's talking about Suzanne Pretty did a top for them, I think. Must be your guild, Barb. Sorry, I saw it go by and I didn't register exactly what you were saying, but Suzanne Pretty did recently an image about a fire in Australia. Suzanne Pretty she's a very talented tapestry weaver. She's been weaving for a long time, and her work is mostly about environmental issues, maybe completely about environmental issues, and so you should look her up. Pretty, spelled just like you think it is, Pretty. So yeah, thanks for mentioning her, Barb. Regina wants to know if we haven't finished our Design 1 course, is it still fitting to join Design 2 from the start? The advantage, Regina, of taking the season when it starts is just that there's the most people interacting with each other. But if you're finding in Design 1 that you're getting what you need from watching the videos when they're not live, the Q&As, that would be fine. I am going to do a little something different with the Q&A in Design 2, which will allow more interaction with people. So I will not talk too much about that until I'm sure that the tech will work. But that would be another reason to take it live, because if you like having a little more interaction with the people in the class in terms of the design you're actually working on, it might be advantageous to take the class when it's live from the beginning. So, oh yeah, and this t-shirt is from, I think Jenny, who gave this to me, might be here. Isn't that cute? It's an image from my Untangled book, and she had it made at some point. I may have some more of these t-shirts made, but I thought it was a fun thing to wear, especially it has the, let's see if you can see this. Life is a tapestry. The pattern you weave is not so easily untangled. And this is the image from the page about floating bars, which is, I call it a floating bar. It's a technique. But my cousin who did the illustrations for the book drew this little sheep who's drinking a beverage in a swimming pool. So anyway, hilarious. And thank you, Ginny, for bringing me the t-shirt. She came to one of my retreats and brought me a present. Let me show you what I'm working on here. So make this smaller. I changed the little header here so that you can see right above, you should see right above my head, there's a URL. I post a lot of links to things that I talk about on that page. So if you want to find a live link to something, I might have posted it if I remembered. And sometimes that's easier than searching things out yourself. So this is that Handbasket tapestry, still working on it. I probably will be working on it for a while, but I've had a lot of fun with it. I started the letters, which was actually the most fun. It's this double set thing where this is 16 EPI and this is 8 EPI, which those of you who have been watching have seen this. And I think today I might just I want to show you how I fill in this little foot part. So there you can get a better sense of the 16 versus the 8 and how they sort of join together here. I wasn't sure about outlining. I think I mentioned this last time. I wasn't sure I was going to outline the letters in 16 EPI, but I really wanted them to be present, and I felt like the best way for that to happen was to have the background behind them also be 16, but it's a lot more weaving. So I have not yet rethreaded the heddles for 16, but I'm trying to get a second shedding device for this loom, and if I can't get one, I will rethread the heddles for 16 EPI because it's a lot faster to pick 8 ends per inch than it is 16. One of you suggested that last week. I can't remember who it was, but it is true that it takes a lot longer to pick up the warps for 16 than it does for 8. Okay, so here, I wonder if you can see that. Let's see if I can zoom in even more. See what the limit of my camera is here. Right here is where I switched in the red. it was split here for 16. So I'm actually going to pick up this one warp in this other shed because I want this fuzzy part of the 8 EPI to cover what I'm doing here with where those two sets come together is a potential problem for them actually for the warp showing. So I don't want that to happen. I know, oh good, here. I knew I was going to run out of weft and I made myself another weft here. Oh, Betsy, okay. Betsy says I thought she was in Colorado, but she's in Kansas, but she knows Colorado well, and that is what was jogging my memory that we had talked about Colorado before. Y'all are so nice to me. I forget all kinds of details about things, and you're so nice too. Hold on, let me keep that camera from causing trouble. Okay, so I'm just going to splice in a new piece of, I like splicing with this fuzzy weft. This is Harrisville Kohler Singles. And it's real grabby, so I can just splice the weft and it will stay. So I'll actually snip this splice off on the back. I won't do that with the other yarn I'm using, the Weaver's Bazaar. I don't cut those off close anymore. I did for a while and then realized that there's a pretty good tendency for the thinner, slicker yarns to pop to the front. So I like to have a clean back, and I always do in my large tapestries, in which I'm using this larger set fuzzy yarn. But in the smaller ones, I will admit that the backs are no longer clean. Doesn't matter, most of them are mounted, so. Okay, cool. Jessica asked about these shirts. The shirt is from my Untangled book and not currently for sale. I'm not fabulous with selling physical products. It is a those of you who own yarn shops know it's a massive amount of work to sell and package and ship physical products. So I do not very often do that. I do ship the Untangled book myself, and that's about all I can handle at the moment. So I don't have t-shirts for sale is the long and short of that. Someday maybe I will find somebody who wants an economic opportunity and they'll do it for me. No, Jessica, you were right. I've only had this one shirt that Jenny made for me. She has a friend who makes t-shirts, and she did just a one-off. Okay, trying to decide. See if you can. Here I'm at another point where there's a, do I step over or not? And I think if I step over, it'll make a nice connection. Okay, let's see how that looks. That might or might not work. I might have to take that out. I might have a little warp showing there if I do it this way. So then, of course, what I have to think about is, is that still in focus? This is hatched between these two colors, and I have to think about making that happen here so that the hatching matches this, but I also want to outline the curve of that shoe. So these are the fun tapestry challenges. Also, I don't know if this is going to be in the right shed yet. Let's see. Oh, because it's 16, there is no right shed. And I really need to, oh, there we go. Need to advance this warp at some point. So I want an eccentric outline here, and this is why I was questioning, because I pulled that over one more. I don't think I'm going to like that. There's going to be like a little hole right there where I put that last one in. So I'm going to try this again. Take this out. And instead of, let's just try this. Nope, wrong shed. And this actually, normally that I wouldn't be able to do that. That either shed would have worked on top of this, but because this is 16, the shed is wrong no matter what, which is why I am relying on this fuzzy yarn to bridge the gap there. There are other things you could do, like I could have done a row. If this doesn't work, I might do this. A row of this darker color at 8 per inch with this other yarn would be the other way to fix that. All right. Fortunately, these two are still in the correct shed. I'm hearing, you probably can't hear this. I'm hearing helicopters again. We've had helicopters since August 13 when our fire started. And lately I hear them more because they're getting water out of the reservoir. That's just a mile from my house. But they're now just putting out hot spots. The fire is under control and all is good. Those helicopters are being used to douse they do infrared flights so they can see where the hot pockets of the fire still are, and they'll fly over and dump water on them. Fire technology. It's kind of cool. All right. Let's see if we're going to like this. Oh, it's going to be close. I think it's going to be okay. I think it's going to cover. The lazy part of me doesn't want to go back in. Okay, so now I need to consider how to make this little hatching thing happen. Let's see what this looks like. Got a little puff of weft in there that I don't like. Y'all are gonna think I'm really picky, but see how that pokes right out? Because this is so smooth, that's really gonna show. And I just want to pull a little bit more weft out of there. Okay. All right. That's right. Oh, I have to catch up here. Also need to sew this slit. This is way behind for me in terms of, I sew as I go. I like to keep the slits sewn so that it the fabric integrity stays nice and even. It's possible to sew the whole slit off the loom, but this slit is going to be about this long. Oh, you can't even see that. It's going to be about 5 inches long, and that's too long to leave, in my opinion, until the piece is off the loom. Some people do other things like just stabilize it with a thread now and then off the loom they'll re-sew it, and that's a cool way to do it, I guess. Just not the way I learned. Okay. That's low, so I'm trying to fill this in level at the same time as making this hatching happen without the hatching being bent. I'd like it to look uniform to that. Okay. Thanks, Cheryl. I liked that too. Cheryl says she likes the way the letters pop in the 16 EPI section. I was happy with that, so I think I'm going to be happy with the extra work. I'll show you all that again in just a second. Okay, so then the question is that high enough? Maybe one more pick. Deborah, that's a great question. So Debbie Santola has taken my classes since I started. Thank you, Debbie. You've been an amazing, supportive, wonderful person for all these years. She's asking, did I mention the process of warping and planning for different sets? I may have missed it. No, and I had another student also from my very first class, or friend, whatever, someone who's been taking my classes for a long time, say that a good idea for a class would be actually a very short class, a couple videos about, sorry, excuse my face, about warping and weaving this way. This is honestly, this year is the first time I've really played with this very much. And so it is not included in any of my other classes, Deborah. There's lots of information about choosing set and matching it to your yarn and all of that. But there isn't any video at all. I've never made one about mixing sets like this. So that is a great idea, I think. And I suspect I would just make it a little one-off class, one subject class that would just be a fun way to play with this idea. Okay, we're going to make this just adding a little more green. I want to kind of keep it in the same range as this part. It's one of the challenges of weaving on a large loom when I'm weaving really big things, and it rolls around the beam and you can't reference what you did. It can be hard to know, like there I'm comparing, okay, where did that level come? Well, if the part I'm looking at is gone, it can be tough. That's one of the reasons on big pieces I always work from a cartoon, and I actually put the cartoon on the wall so that I can actually look and measure. I know where I am on the cartoon and I can measure those kind of details and make sure that I don't screw it up even when I can't see the weaving. Okay, great. Back on track. Also really need to advance this warp. This is getting too, you can see it in the other view. This is getting too close to the shedding bar. I can move the shedding bar up, but then I'm reaching higher. So the best ergonomic thing is to roll the tapestry down. And I'm fine if I can roll this. Oh, you can't see that either. The flame part, if I can roll that around the bottom, that's fine. I don't need to reference that as I'm weaving. I will like to keep this center part where I can see it as long as possible. Okay, that turned out okay. It covered in. It looks like it's going to fill in around that shoe just fine without me. I can see just a tiny bit of the warp there if I look in the video, and I think as I weave a little more on top, that will disappear completely just because of this fuzzy yarn. Let's do a couple more. This is wanting to roll forward is why I'm pushing this from behind with my index finger. The weft tension there is not perfect, and so I'm getting, I was starting to get a little ridging, which I could feel. So I was pushing that forward with my index finger from behind to get this second warp in to be even. And that's another reason I need to stitch this slit. which I could actually do right now. Let me back out a little bit. I'm going to turn my, okay. Let's get this out of the way. The weft wants to walk up a little as I'm working on different sections. All right, fortunately I see some thread. I like to sew with, this is upholstery thread. I was taught to use this by James Kohler, who was my teacher a long time ago now, 10 years ago. Almost 10 years since he passed away. It's upholstery thread. It comes in different colors, which is kind of useful. It's super strong and it works great for tapestries at like 6, 8, 10 ends per inch. I don't think it would work great on a tapestry that was all 16 ends per inch because I think it's too thick. Just my opinion, but I think it would show. So I might use actually a sewing thread for sewing up parts that are at closer sets. I do actually use this at 12 ends per inch, come to think of it though. It depends on the weft you're using, whether it's going to be hidden or not. If you use this figure 8 method that I use for sewing slits, it should disappear. And this particular stitching method also learned from James Kohler, who was my teacher. And it is taught in almost every single one of my online classes. Actually, that's not true. Warp and Weft and the Little Looms class. There is a video about this, so you can go there and look at it. Let's see. Mary's asking about a warping error. That's an interesting question, Mary. Is there a way to fix warps that are crossed? If it's just a matter of the heddles, you could redo the heddles. You could take the heddles off and uncross the warps if it's a continuous warp, if they're right next to each other, and then put the heddles on again. Otherwise, I would say no, and you should redo it. But if it's just crossed over, you've just made an error in how you've put the heddles on, basically. You just need to uncross the warp and then put the heddles on the right way. So it's I should just do this and then I will look at your questions. How about that? Otherwise, those of you who really want to see this will be frustrated with me. So I just stitch as I go and then I leave the thread hanging down, and because I'm making a figure 8, the stitching completely disappears. A lot of other tapestry weavers will stitch from the back. So after it's off the loom, they will do a stitch that shows on the back of the tapestry, which works great. That's what I saw them doing in France when I had the amazing opportunity to go to France in 2019. So did not, of course, know that we would not be traveling again anytime soon. I'm so grateful I got that opportunity. Anyway, in Abusan, they have, after the piece comes off the loom, they put it on a frame. They did this in Paris also. We saw them doing it for the low warp tapestry stuff, but I'm sure they do it at the Gobelin, also the upright tapestry looms. Anyway, the tapestry's upside down and they're stitching it in a way that you see the stitches on the back, but you don't see them on the front. That's all I'm trying to say. And I know other tapestry weavers in the US I've seen do that very same thing. I just like doing it this way on the loom. It keeps the structure of the tapestry nice and even as I'm weaving, and it is done. I don't have to redo anything when it's off the loom. It's finished. I do actually leave it untied at the top, and there are times where I need to tighten up the stitches after it comes off of tension. Mostly I'm talking about big pieces there. Okay, actually I'm not going to put that last stitch in. And then I take the needle off and I just let this hang until the next time I'm going to stitch. So that worked out pretty well. Here the next thing I'm thinking about as I'm weaving is I need to outline this red part, fill in, this will be yellow, and then I need to weave this green up to this point, and then this is a flame that comes in, so then I'll outline that. So the whole tapestry thing is always shifting, like what you're going to weave next, where, depends on what is, you know, what's coming in. Actually, probably the next thing I'll do is build this up because I want to keep the fell line somewhat even, just so it helps the fabric maintain consistency. Anyway, I like how the letters are turning out. I wanted them to look hand drawn, and I think they're coming out pretty well. Okay. See, Ellen, I read your mind. Ellen said, can you sew it today so we can see it? So there it is. Oh, Elsie, that's a great idea. Elsie's actually, and I actually apologize for this, you guys. I actually, this is my cartoon and I have it back here because I am sometimes, especially doing stuff like these letters, I am lining it up just to see are my marks on the warp, but the cartoon is marked. See if you can see it like this. The cartoon is marked on the warp. So I'm using this for reference, and I apologize, this probably would have been easier for you to see if I had a gray thing back there. I don't attach my cartoon to the weaving. I draw it on the warp. This is something I've always done because I use large looms where I'm using the beater bar a lot, and so I can't have a cartoon under there for the beater to work. So it's just a habit of mine to always draw the cartoon on the warp. And obviously I don't have the whole thing drawn here. Other reason I have this back here. But so if I did have the cartoon connected, so like Tommy Scanlon, there's a picture in my book of one of her leaf tapestries on a copper pipe loom. And you can see in that image, the tapestry is kind of held behind, so she can see it with, I think there's like a string across the back of the loom, and it's actually sewn underneath. And you can see, if you look carefully, the sewing stitches of how that paper is sewn to the back, but it falls away from the tapestry. So yeah, if I were stitching and I wanted to stitch up here, I would have already sewn that slit. So hopefully that helps, Elsie. Yes, I teach sewing slits, Catherine, in Warp and Weft and the Little Looms class. Yeah. And Nikki was asking about doing a course. I was talking about whether I would do a short course about this. I think it would be really fun, so I'm thinking about it. We can blame that on Summer if it happens, because it was her idea. Yes, Barb, great question. Do I sew the slit the same way from the front or the back? So I'm weaving from the front, and many of you have seen me in my courses. I weave from the back a lot of the time. I do it exactly the same way. The only difference was when I tied this knot at the bottom, you might have seen me tuck that tail behind before I started sewing. And if you forget, just take a needle and stick it to the back. That's the only difference. The form of the sewing is the same. It's a figure 8 between two warps, and it happens the same whether you are weaving from the front or the back. Catherine asked, what's the largest slit that you wouldn't sew? It depends a little on the set. At 8 ends per inch or 10 ends per inch, which is really common set for me for larger things, if it's going to hang from the warp, I will leave a slit that's sometimes up to a 1/2 inch. Definitely I'll leave a 1/4 inch without thinking about it twice. A piece like this is woven sideways. So I will sew the slits much faster if a piece is woven sideways, because it's going to hang this way. It's going to hang from the weft. And if I left, just think about it, if I left this open and it's hanging, you know, it's turned and this is where the bar is, this slit is going to fall open. And I don't want that to happen. So the sewing is important structurally, especially if you're weaving sideways. But for an 8 ends per inch kind of set, I will stitch usually after a quarter. I'll stitch every 1/2 inch, but I'll leave a slit that is a 1/4 inch unsewn. Say I'm making a form and it's like stepping, you know, making a form and it's stepping over. I'll leave those verticals if they're a 1/4 inch or more or less. Sometimes a little more than that. Oh, Marla, I'm not going to roll it down today, but that is a good question. I guess I could. Why not? Let me back this out so you can see it better. You can see I remembered right here, oh, you probably heard that. My microphone, hopefully the sound is a little better today. So to roll this down, all you do, let me pull this out. This is an acrylic sheet that I've been using. One of my students, Jim, mentioned this, and oh, you can see my light too. This is just a plastic acrylic sheet. If you search on Amazon for acrylic mirror, you'll find those, and it's actually quite useful if you're weaving from the front to peek through and see what's happening on the back, or vice versa. So warping bar, you can't see the stabilizers on the top, but I'm sorry, the tension rod. I'm turning both of the tension rods at the same time. Both of the tension screws. This is the Shacked Arras Loom, and you need to loosen it enough that this bar is loose. I want the tension loose enough that it can move. And so all it is you're loosening the tension. It's the very same thing on the Murex. You're loosening the tension and you're pulling it down. So one thing I should have, most of these tails I'm not going to use, but some of the ones at the top I may use again. I would prefer not to have them caught. Okay, so now can you see what I was talking about? So here's the fire part. I don't need to use that. Make sure these aren't caught in the... I don't need to see that. For reference, I would like to see these letters, so I'm going to go down a little bit more. I'm pulling the bar with both hands with even tension so that it doesn't tilt, and you want to make sure it's not tilted. Some of the, if you're weaving on a wider loom and a narrower warp, your bar will tilt, and you should check frequently that you have not allowed the warping bar to. Oh, and then I think I'm going the wrong way. This loom twists the opposite of the Murex, so hang on. So then you just tighten it up. And so I'm always getting it backwards because it's opposite from what I'm most used to, which is weaving on the Murex. So then you just put your mirror back in and your cartoon, and you're ready to go. It's pretty simple. It's just a matter of releasing the tension, moving it, and then increasing the tension again. All right, so I have yammered on today. Let's see what final questions you have, because Jessica asks how does the upholstery thread compare to the button thread, and I was showing you the upholstery. Sorry, I've written my name on there. It's Coates and Clark makes this upholstery thread. There's other ones. I think this is 100% polyester, and so it's different than button thread. Jessica, she's asking about button thread, but it's similar. They're both strong. It's fine. Actually, this thread is probably stronger than any other element in this piece. And so if you're worried about conservation issues, you might actually use a weaker thread than this, because that thread will still be around in 500 years when the rest of the tapestry is disintegrating. I don't actually care about that. So, okay, great. It looks like I apologize. I often miss questions, and y'all, it's, you just ask again, ask in a class, or ask me next week, or ask on a blog post. Do you not measure to the bar to make sure it's the same length? I am eyeballing, I think you're asking when I turn the thing, Aniki. I'm eyeballing this. So I have a straight line here, and I'm just getting that level. It is true that it could be unfortunate if your tapestry didn't end up level. And so, yes, you could measure the bar. In my experience, the bar isn't necessarily straight anymore. So it's important to eyeball it. And also, sometimes I sometimes will put on a cartoon a horizontal line at, sequential horizontal lines across cartoons in a different color. So, and I will mark that on the warp in a different color, just so I know, okay, I'm keeping everything horizontal instead of things getting tilted. Because yes, you don't want to come to the end of your thing and find out, oh, that's not going to be square because it has not stayed square. In general, I eyeball it. I can see whether the warp is perpendicular, but it's a great question. Yeah, Nan, I know righty tighty, lefty loosey, but it's backwards. From the way that the screw is working is backwards on this loom than it is on the, maybe it's not, I don't know. Whatever. On the Merrick's, I had to have a little piece of tape forever that told me which way to tighten the things. And now I have it right, and this loom feels backwards to me. Hi, Nita. I'm glad you made it. You can catch up later. And we had, so I didn't mention that we had daylight savings time since I last was here. And so that has messed up a bunch of you who are in Europe, probably because you don't have the same time change as we do. So I'm sorry about that. I should put there's a lots of time converter things on Google. I should put a link to one of those on the page. Just so you can check, especially if you're in a different country. And Arizona in the United States does not go on daylight savings time. So half of the year they are on the wrong time. Actually, they are on the right time, and the rest of us are all messed up. Jennifer, you could totally do that. A second warping bar to keep the back open. Mezoff sells a no warp-ins kit, which is the concept there that you're talking about, that you can use. You can connect two bars and connect them with TechSolve to keep. You end up using less warp, which is not what I'm concerned about, but you could keep the back more open that way. I have not done that, but you could. And Nita, I said earlier, but you didn't hear it. January 11, January 2nd, I think, is when I'm doing signups for the design class, but I'm not quite sure yet. I'll have it in my newsletter in the next couple of weeks. The class will start in terms of content on January 11, and obviously registration will be before that. But I'm guessing January 2nd will be the day. Okay. Thanks. Somebody else says it feels different to me. I just think that the screw is upside down from how it is on the Mezoff. So on the Mezoff, it's turning one way, and on the Shacked, it feels like it's. I will get out a Mezoff and compare them, and then I can have a definitive answer. Thanks, you all. I've gone on too long today. I really appreciate your showing up, and I hope you're weaving stuff. I think I will, I don't know, I'm going to work on this more this week, but I'm not sure what I'll have next week, but I'll be here on the 25th. It might be this, or it might be another small tapestry I'm working on, which is one of the fire tapestries. And I also have a couple other things in process that might show up at some point soon. So I think that the winter's going to be a rough one in terms of COVID in the United States. So please wear your masks and take care of everybody around you. And I think we're going to have a lot of Zoom holiday celebrations this year. So Anyway, y'all are the best. Thanks for everything, and I will see you in 1 week right here. Bye, y'all.